Okay, let's jump right into it. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something, well, pretty fundamental: the nature of fulfillment.
Yeah, why does it feel like we're all searching for it?
Exactly. And what if, we're maybe looking in the wrong places? So, our mission today is to unpack some really powerful insights. We've got source material excerpts from something called Chapter 68.pdf,
Right.
and the goal is to understand what truly fulfilled people grasp that maybe often eludes the rest of us.
Like a shortcut to a clearer perspective.
Yeah, exactly. A shortcut to understanding how to live a life that feels genuinely meaningful.
Well, that source material, it gets right to the heart of it from the start. It suggests there's this, universal aching desire for a meaningful life. That part's pretty clear.
Uh-huh. We all feel that.
But the path, that's where we often misunderstand things. We end up trying to fill what's basically an internal void.
Using external stuff.
Precisely. Things like possessions, achievements, maybe even trying too hard to please other people.
Right. And this source, it offers a definition of fulfillment that's just worlds away from simply collecting things or ticking boxes.
How does it put it?
It describes it as a happiness rooted in self-realization.
Self-realization.
Okay, so truly understanding what you want, not what you think you should want, seeing beyond the mindsets you might have just, picked up along the way,
Inherited or adopted, yeah.
and recognizing the simple, unique offering you bring to the world daily. And the love that gets awakened through that action, it completely reframes the goal.
That totally shifts the focus. And it leads right into one of the most profound insights, I think, right at the beginning. The source argues that genuine, lasting success, it isn't just about hitting a specific outcome,
Okay.
the real fulfilling success. It comes from falling in love with the process.
Okay, let's unpack that. Falling in love with the process. So
Yeah.
not just the trophy or the finished project,
Right.
but the actual doing, the day in, day out stuff, the routine.
Precisely. Think about writing a book. That's an example they use.
Oh.
You can focus like crazy on the idea of having a finished book, getting it published, all that.
Sure, the outcome.
But the fulfillment, the actual life you're living while you're pursuing that, it's found in the daily act of writing. Putting words down, revising, shaping the story. That simple, sometimes kind of unglamorous routine, that is where the life you're building truly exists.
That really resonates. And it connects so directly to another point in the material, doesn't it?
Which one?
About tangible things. Like money, the published book, the fancy job title. It says those are just mile markers.
Right, exactly. Products or byproducts of your life. They aren't the goal itself.
They're not the point.
No. As this material lays it out, the true goal is fulfillment. Full stop. Those tangible things. There's just the natural expressions, maybe consequences, that often pop up when you're deeply engaged in a process you love, one that really aligns with who you are.
It's like that analogy it uses. Don't confuse the radio, the physical thing, for the sound wave, the invisible force carrying the music, the underlying essence.
Yeah, I like that. The radio isn't the music.
Right. So the real chase, the real pursuit, is learning to find the extraordinary in the simplest moments of your daily life. Because that's actually where the fulfillment is hiding.
And building on that shift from outcomes to process.
Yeah.
The source brings up this deceptively simple idea, but it feels incredibly powerful.
Okay.
It's the idea of changing how you frame things, moving from feeling like you have to do stuff
Right, the obligation feeling.
to recognizing that you actually get to experience them.
Oh, that little word change, have to versus get to. That feels small, but what's the deeper shift happening there? How does that change things fundamentally?
Well, it basically rewires your whole perspective. It flips things from obligation to empowerment, or maybe opportunity.
Okay, opportunity. I like that.
Yeah. It transforms everything from a burden you kind of wish you could avoid into an opportunity you can actually choose to engage with. The source gives examples like, you don't have to go to work today. You get to contribute your skills, you get to interact, experience something.
Yeah.
Or you don't have to wake up early for that project you care about. You get to invest your time, your energy in building something meaningful to you.
So it's about seeing the chance in it, rather than just the chore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actively taking advantage of opportunities instead of just feeling resigned to obligations, it changes the whole energy.
It really does shift the energy. And, this material also mentions something about how things that feel genuinely wonderful often have this quality of effortlessness.
Effortlessness. Is it saying real meaning comes easy without struggle?
That's what I wondered.
Well, often, yes. When you're truly in alignment with that process we talked about, the state you're in while you're creating something or just doing a task, it has a huge impact on the outcome.
How so?
If you put ease into it, presence, that kind of love for the process itself,
Mm.
others can feel that energy. They get more out of whatever you've created or done. It's less about forcing things.
And more about flowing.
Yeah, exactly. Flowing.
And that idea, flow and creation, it connects to another really fundamental concept in here.
Go on.
That anything that exists in your life, good or bad, it's there because on some level you created it. And anything that persists, that sticks around, it's doing so because you are actively feeding it.
Ooh, that's a big one. That prompts some serious self-reflection, doesn't it?
Totally.
Like, what are your daily actions, your thoughts, your energy? What are they actually nourishing? Are you feeding a need for external validation? Or a genuine love for your craft?
Or maybe, without realizing it, feeding resentment. Or complacency.
Right. The source suggests your life starts making a lot more sense when you honestly ask yourself moment by moment, day by day, what am I feeding right now?
That's a really powerful lens. Makes you incredibly aware of your own agency in shaping your reality.
Definitely.
And speaking of internal dynamics, the source also digs into the challenge of listening to your instincts.
Ah, yes. Trusting your gut.
But it points out something crucial. The issue isn't whether you listen, but what part of yourself you're actually listening to.
Okay, unpack that. What's the distinction?
Well, our immediate, knee-jerk instincts, they might be driven by a need for protection.
Sure, self-preservation.
Or rooted in fear or a feeling of lack. They might push you towards staying small, avoiding perceived threats, rather than towards, expansion and growth.
So not all instincts are created equal, basically.
Exactly. The source urges discernment, asking critical questions when you feel that strong inner pull or reaction.
Like what kind of questions?
Like, what's the real root of this reaction? Where is this impulse actually coming from? Is it fear? Is it wisdom? And crucially, what would the long-term outcome likely be if I followed this particular inner voice?
That's a great framework for evaluating those internal signals. Super valuable.
Yeah. And this idea of trusting something deeper within, it connects straight to the concept of healing that's mentioned.
Ah, the healing aspect.
The notion that your soul or your deeper self inherently knows how to heal itself, the real difficulty is often just letting it, getting out of its way.
So this perspective suggests that tough life situations, they aren't just random suffering.
Apparently not always. It frames them as often being precisely the circumstances needed to bring long-standing internal issues, maybe wounds or patterns.
Up to the surface.
Yeah, into conscious awareness, forcing you, in a way, to finally confront them, address them, and hopefully release them.
So it's about trusting that innate, natural wisdom inside us.
Right, which, according to this source, understands healing on a much deeper level than our analytical thinking mind ever could, trusting nature over just the intellect.
Trusting that inner nature. Okay, that seems to lead right into another truth the source brings up, one that might feel a bit counterintuitive at first.
Which is?
It suggests you likely can't be whatever you want, not in some abstract, unlimited, I can be president or an astronaut tomorrow kind of sense.
Okay, that definitely goes against some common messages.
Right.
Yeah.
But, and this is the key part, if you dedicate the necessary effort and you're fortunate, you absolutely can be exactly who you are.
Be exactly who you are, not necessarily whatever you want.
Yes. It challenges that common self-help narrative. Why can't you just be anything? The source suggests those often grandiose visions of being someone totally different or achieving things purely for external applause. They frequently stem from an underlying feeling of lacking something, of inadequacy.
Okay. So trying to become something you're not is often just a way to compensate for feeling like you're not enough as you are.
That seems to be the idea. And the source points out something really striking.
Right.
People who achieve truly incredible things, they often don't see those things as extraordinary themselves. To them, it's just normal.
Normal.
Yeah. That level of consistent high-level output often comes from doing something that's so deeply integrated into their routine, something born from an alignment with who they truly are. It doesn't feel like putting on a costume. It feels natural, like breathing.
So the real hard work isn't necessarily about transforming into a completely different person, but about having the courage and maybe the opportunity to fully step into and embody the person you already are deep down.
Precisely. The material frames being who you are not as some easy path, but as both an extraordinary challenge and a profound
A
privilege.
challenge and a privilege.
And aligning your life, your work, your relationships, your daily actions, aligning all that with your authentic self, that's presented as the true path to fulfillment, even if you might have spent years denying that person existed or convincing yourself they weren't enough.
Wow. Okay, this brings us right back around, full circle, to a central idea that just runs through all of this source material.
Which is?
The happier you genuinely are with your own decisions, with the path you're actually walking, with the process you're engaged in, the less you feel you need other people's support or their validation or their approval.
Yeah, the neediness drops away. But what's fascinating is the irony the source points out here.
That's the irony.
By finding that internal certainty, that deep happiness with your own path, you very often naturally attract the very external support, the connection, the validation you might have been desperately seeking before, back when you weren't truly aligned with yourself.
That makes so much sense. When you radiate that kind of quiet confidence and ease in your own skin, that energy is just magnetic.
Exactly.
But navigating this stuff is tough in the real world because, as the source also points out, society often values a pretty narrow type of happiness.
Yeah, tell me about it.
One that's comfortable, predictable,
Right.
one that doesn't challenge the expectations or maybe the fears of others too much.
Right. Society might not throw you a parade for choosing a simpler path that fulfills you or for pursuing some weird passion project over a conventionally successful career track.
Even if it makes you deeply happy.
Exactly. And the source gives some pretty strong advice here. It basically says, do not let other people's unaddressed fears, their limitations, their demons, don't let that stuff dictate your happiness or make you afraid to follow your own path.
That takes courage. And that fear or discomfort from others often ties into another pervasive belief discussed in the material.
Let me guess. The zero-sum game.
Bingo. The zero-sum fallacy. The idea that love, success, happiness, they're like finite resources, like pie.
Right. If someone else gets a big slice, there's less for you. This belief, often picked up way back in elementary school or something, it creates this constant sense of internal competition. If someone else is successful or gets love, it must somehow diminish your potential or your worthiness.
That's exhausting.
Totally. But the source is really clear. Someone else's success does not take away from yours. Another person receiving love doesn't decrease the love available in the world or your capacity for it or your worthiness of it. Your value isn't measured by being better than someone else. It's just inherent.
That's so liberating. It frees you from that constant draining comparison game.
Absolutely.
And just one more point to touch on briefly. The source includes this really potent insight about judgment.
Judging others.
Yeah, how even when you feel absolutely certain you are right in judging someone else, you're ultimately using that judgment as a way to avoid looking at your own stuff, your own fears, insecurities, assumptions.
Ouch. So it shifts the focus entirely.
Yeah.
Judging others becomes less about them.
And more about your own internal discomfort. Like, why is it easier to pick apart someone else's choices than to really examine the assumptions or maybe the potential judgments you fear others might be making about you?
That's a deep cut right there.
It really is. So, okay, looking back at all these threads we've pulled, from falling in love with the daily doing, seeing opportunities, not just obligations, to trusting your deepest instincts, your soul's healing power, embracing the challenge and privilege of being truly who you are.
Meeting less external validation, navigating what society expects.
Understanding that comparison is a trap, recognizing judgment as a mirror. It all circles back, doesn't it?
It seems to.
To this profound understanding fulfillment. It's fundamentally an inside job.
Yeah, not out there.
Not found in external outcomes or achievements or chasing approval. It's in the process itself, in authenticity, in discerning that inner wisdom, and in finding deep meaning in the simple daily act of living in alignment with your true self.
Which really makes you think. Considering everything we've just explored, finding fulfillment in the process, in the simple daily doing, and aligning with who you truly are. What single simple daily action or interaction in your life right now could you maybe choose to fall just a little more in love with, starting today? Knowing that the fulfillment isn't waiting down the road in some future outcome, but is right there, available right now in the act itself.